Live right now. Hey guys, we are live once again from the digital marketing studio. Such a fancy word here in Los Angeles. Super excited. We have Malorie Nicole on the horn here today. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. And
Awesome.
I say on the horn, it just sounds so dated, like on a phone or something. We're high tech here. This is StreamYard.com. If you've never tried it, Mallory, you got to check it out. It's awesome.
I do. I need to check this out. I love that you can stream in multiple places at once, video, audio. It's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. It's called content distribution. And I know you're all about content. In fact, we're going to be talking about some really cool content here today. I've titled this The Three Most Common Mistakes or Things That Business Owners, Executives, Solopreneurs, six-figure, seven, eight, nine-figure businesses deal with, that they really come across. There's similar patterns here, but there's probably different ways a nine-figure executive would look at this than the solopreneur who's starting with $5,000 in the bank and
Mhm.
still scaling different levels, right? So I thought we'd talk about this today and some of the things that you've found to be true in the space and the different markets that you deal with, and also some of the solutions. But before we get to that, Malorie, I have your screen up here for those who are coming in and watching this on YouTube and live. I thought it would maybe be great to just start with you, just a brief sort of introduction about your story and what brought you here, and then also what you specifically focus on with your clients.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for having me. And I'll try and keep the story part as short as possible because I know you and I have talked a little bit about that. It can get a bit lengthy, but to keep it short for today, anyone that's listening, we want this as condensed as possible so you can get the most value in 20 minutes as we can. My story really starts from coming from a pretty severe health background of not knowing what was wrong with me and having a bunch of health issues that were showing up, that opened up a world of coaching. And I started learning about health coaching and getting into wanting to pursue a health coaching certification, which really led me to a deeper understanding of mind body and how the mind and body are connected. And that led to further interest to really pursue what now is mindset coaching and helping people really understand the subconscious beliefs that are blocking them from preventing growth in their companies, with whether they're a solopreneur or they have a team, where those blockers are and how the mind has really shaped the way they are growing their business. We live in a marketing world and we're constantly learning, even myself, all of these things to do to grow our businesses. And I really love helping people set the foundation up, which truly I believe starts with the mind and your thought and how you're showing up to your business for growth.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you had to go through that to kind of find your it. But
Mhm.
do you? I'm just curious because anytime something like this happens, typically something probably, well, in your case, negative that turned into quite a positive. How did you switch from that and say, okay, I think I got this? The body, the mind, the soul, the spirit, the coaching aspects of helping entrepreneurs. But you could have become a therapist dealing with family issues, or parenting or things like that, but you kind of switched onto the corporate trail, right? I mean, was there a clear path, or did you just sort of stumble into that too?
Yeah, it wasn't so much a clear path, but it was a series of a bunch of things that didn't make any sense that I kept saying yes to. Because intuitively, I was getting all of these calls to just follow the path that led from, you know, doing health coaching and then having people that were seeing that I was health coaching reaching out to me for business help. And then I started helping business owners. And then people that were making more and more and more money were reaching out to me saying, "Hey, I don't know if you work with someone like me at this, level of business, but I really like what you're sharing about mindset and I think I could use your help." Oftentimes business owners spend money on marketing and ads and email funnels and branding before they spend money on mindset. It's just kind of what people usually do. So someone like me is coming in and they're seeing me talking about mindset and they start asking themselves the question, "Oh, maybe I should think about this. That's never been a line item on my business budget or my monthly expenses to really take care of my mind and take care of me and see how I'm showing up to further my growth." And it's just been this natural evolution of what's led me to work with business owners. And, real quick, one of the reasons I love working with solopreneurs and entrepreneurs is because I truly believe that we create our own blocks. And when those blocks are removed, and we also have a business that we don't have anybody telling us what we can and cannot do, we can create whatever we want. There are no rules. It's limitless. So that's one of the reasons why I truly love working with business owners.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, really impactful at all levels there. And actually, the big takeaway here, as I'm sort of grasping this angle here, is yes, it was unfortunate that happened, and sort of something negative turned, well, positive is good, but it's also this idea that I think, and I see this, and hey, I'm talking about myself too in this mix, is, if you start analyzing too much about, where you think you need to go, or, you limit yourself by not trying or exploring, like in your case, the conversation's opened up and you're like, sure, I'll venture into this, and I'll take this to the next level for you. That helped you actually, because you didn't sort of hinder yourself by being so analytical and paralyzing yourself by saying, well, no, that's not the direction I had planned. I'm open to this because I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm somebody who is a shifter of minds and businesses, so I can actually do this. And I think that's a big takeaway there.
Yeah, and there were moments where it was, I'm not going to lie, there were moments where it was terrifying. I had people that were making way more money than me at earlier stages of my business asking me for help, and I'm going, oh my gosh, like, can I really help this person? Like, they are so much further along in business than I am. Do I really have, what they need? I had to overcome my own growth mindset experiences to get where I am. It's never a you have to do this and I don't have to do anything. As a business owner, we all have to take ownership of every single part of our business. And I myself had to do a lot of my own mindset work to overcome the barriers I was setting up for myself in order to grow the way that I have.
Yeah, that's great. And what a great lead into the three things here, Malorie. I know we talked about it briefly before we got on here, but I'm sure you too see these common threads that are happening just from, like the solopreneur type of individual up to the large corporate executives, males and females, right? We're not trying to, segment this. I know you work with, both sexes, but there are patterns, and we know this. I mean, it gets down to human nature at so many levels, but those three things, I would be curious if you could break this down and explain what you've seen with those three things and how you typically help them overcome that. And that's really something I'm very excited about, because I'm going to be taking notes here and following up on this video myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the first one that I see that's so common is really this concept of overwhelm, in that we're supposed to do something to outwork the problem. So a lot of times our problems are actually inner dialogue. They're inner narratives. They're what's going on in our brain. They're what's going on in our subconscious programming. But people wake up every single day to their very lucrative businesses, or maybe they're stuck and they're at six figures, but they're trying to get to multi-six and they can't figure out why. And they have this mindset of they must do something to outwork the problem. Well, sometimes there are actual problems that you need to outwork, that you need to do, but sometimes it's mindset. And if it is mindset, quite often it gets avoided, because marketers are marketers, and people that own businesses have a tendency to think in the where is my next client and what am I going to do to bring in more money today, this week, this month, this year, whatever that looks like. And what they do is they avoid the overwhelm, the root of the overwhelm, the real, programming issue that's going on in the mind. And they continue to rationalize that the stress is normal, that entrepreneurs are all supposed to be very high stress, high functioning individuals. And because of that, they never address the root. When the root really is, how are you experiencing what you're experiencing? And that is all mindset. That's all brain work right there. And that's one of the number one things that I think entrepreneurs and people, this isn't just entrepreneurs, it's everybody. People in general have a tendency to avoid, because they don't want to uncover that, or sometimes they don't know how. They don't know how to figure out what is it that's really creating the stress that I'm feeling. They just think that, well, I'm a high stress person, so this is how it's supposed to be. or I work in a high stress environment, so this is how it's supposed to be. And they rationalize it. I think that's probably the number one thing.
Yeah, that's so true. That rationalize bit that you talk about, that it's supposed to be this way, and so you don't address it. What is maybe one thing that somebody could say? Okay, you know what? I'm Malorie's calling me out on this one. Well, what is perhaps one thing I could do to get started on alleviating that stress and that overwhelm?
I think to really understand how to alleviate the stress and the overwhelm, you really need to understand where it's coming from. And that's not necessarily something, that's where it gets a little bit tricky. It's so much less about the word do, and it's more about the word be. Oftentimes we don't ask ourselves those questions. We ask ourselves what actions we need to take. We look at our checklist, we look at our goals, we look at what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, but we forget to ask ourselves the question of who we are being while we are doing the things that we're doing. And it's really, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, what's something I can do? You can start asking yourself the intention you're setting behind the things that you're doing. What intention, how are you going into the action that you're taking? And that's not necessarily going to fix the problem if there is a problem per se. But it will allow your brain to start thinking in a way that might be different than the programming that you're on right now. Because the programming that most people live in every single day is, what do I need to do? What's next? We live in the future. So we future pace ourselves. When we're asking ourselves these constant, what do I need to do to get there? It's a reflection of that we're never living in the present moment.
Yeah. And like you said, this is not just a checklist of 1, 2 things and you're done. It kind of goes deep. And I know we're going to get more information on how to reach you on this, because you have some great resources. I know, including your own podcast, which is wonderful. I'm a subscriber.
Thanks.
So we'll allow that to happen a little bit more offline. But that's a first number one right there. The overwhelm. What's number 2 that you would call out?
Number 2, I think fear and perfection. They often fall into the same category. Fear and perfections. For some people, it's more perfection. For some people, it's more fear. But let's put it together for today's purpose of just including everybody in this box.
Right.
Fear and perfection are something that it really hinders people from growth. So this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. Oftentimes people think the next level to financial growth is to add more marketing on or to spend more money on ads. And sometimes that is a very viable thing to do. And sometimes it can produce more money. But a lot of times money is not coming in, or there are ways that you can grow your business or things that you're not seeing solely because you are scared to take the action, or you are fearful of what, how you might feel in taking the action, or you're scared you're going to screw something up. People do not want to screw up. They just don't. And you know how that feels. I know how that feels. I'm human. You don't want to do something and have it not work. Everybody likes to think that the things that we try, they're going to work out. But the alternative of that is that we hinder ourselves from creating opportunity and really living in our fullest potential because we're scared of what others might think. We get stuck in the comparison game. We're scared of what might happen, what might not happen. All of those questions start to arise.
Yeah, that's I'm just nodding here. It's just really hitting home. And like you said, we're human, right? And so this sort of level of embarrassment or failure, and the fear. I mean, that's a big deal. And that's what you also see, like you mentioned, the comparison game. I mean, you're up on the internet every day and social media, and you see the folks up there, including myself. You want to post positive things. Nobody wants to hear about negative things, but often that is overinflated, and it's set up in such a way to say, look at me, I'm great. And it's a status thing. Status is huge. And so it's tough to deal with, because you're dealing with your own demons, and some are better at this than others. But the fact that you call this out as a number 2 is huge. Yeah, fear and perfection. I love that. And I know, as I said before, we're going to get more information on this, guys and gals. So don't worry, we're kind of going brief on some of these topics, but I wanted to call these out because not only are they important, but they're important to recognize and then take action on them, which we'll get to here as we close out. But before that, we're going to get to number 3.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah.
So number 3 is one of my favorite topics, and it really is the difference between a scarcity mindset and a growth mindset. I work with a lot of people on money, their money mindset, how they're showing up to their business, how their relationship with money is, and what all that looks like. And I do believe that number 3, having a scarcity mindset, although scarcity could fall into every single one of those categories, but to make it simple, I do believe that scarcity is one of the number one things that entrepreneurs do not address, because that is never going to be addressed with adding more onto your marketing plan. That is 100% a programming thing. You have to look at what's going on in your brain. You have to look at what are the neural pathways that are being followed every single day. You have to look at the history. You have to look at where it started. And you have to understand how you're experiencing something. The difference between scarcity and growth in mindset terms, a scarcity mindset and a growth mindset, the same thing could happen to 2 different people. And one person is going to experience it as completely debilitating, and it's going to derail them from moving forward. The other person could experience the same exact situation, and it could make them stronger. What is it about your thinking and about your thoughts that is creating the reality and the perception that you're seeing your worldview and your lens from?
That's interesting. And you mentioned scarcity. Immediately I was thinking, abundance, meaning is that the flip side to that, or is it all lumped into the same thing? Because, I like to talk about positive things, and, hey, we have different training courses, as I know, and inside we want to, cheer people on and, hey, think abundantly. And, there's lots of money around and there's a lot of resources. Don't be negative, snap out of your own bad self. Right. And so how do you, when you think about scarcity in that way, is that the flip side of that, or are they very similar, just as I described it there?
Yeah, that's actually where the Abundantly Clear podcast is the name of the podcast. So abundant is in it. And then I also have a money mindset course, which is abundantlyclearcourse.com. It is in line to try and help people understand how to custom, not one size fits all, but how to custom get out of that scarcity thinking and where it comes from, and why they might be, so fearful of this concept of, I'm trying to think of a good example. I've had $1 million clients say to me before that they're just so scared that all the money is going to run out. They're never going to make another dollar. Where does that come from? You have all of this money in the bank, but yet you're still struggling with this fear of everything is just going to implode one day and you're not going to have anything left. Or this concept of, if I not wanting to spend money on their business growth because they're so scared that more money is not going to come. Your relationship with money can be, I don't want to say it can be tricky, but I think that we just don't look at it in maybe the most productive and healthy way to set up a foundation for ourselves and for our businesses to grow. That was one of the biggest things that I had to do the most work on, was my scarcity money mindset. I came from a family that, I'm not going to say we were poor, but my dad was stressed about money a lot, and money was a hot topic. Money is one of the number one things that couples argue about every single day. So it's also one of the number one things that people don't like to talk about. And if we don't like to talk about it, it kind of means that we're putting the emotion of shame around it.
Yeah, that's so profound, Malorie. This is really awesome. There's so much more to cover within these top 3 that we talked about today. And obviously you have, made it abundantly clear that there is lots more.
I love that you said it that way, though, because communication, if I was to add a fourth in here, it would be communication.
Yeah.
And that, I know that we're at 3, but I want to go ahead and add that, because I love how you just said you've made it abundantly clear, because that is one thing that I think that a lot of business owners avoid. They avoid having conversations with their team members like they should. They avoid firing people when it's time to fire people. Or even if that's clients, the client relationship maybe isn't working out the best, but they don't want to fire them because they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Effective communication, living abundantly clear in your speech and your communication and your truth of what you're sharing, and speaking up when you need to speak up and not letting that fear cut you down, I think is probably the fourth. And I want to go ahead and add that one in as we're wrapping up.
Beautiful. Bonus. Yeah. And also I think as I, that number 4, think about it, is that business owners allow that communication to happen. Because I've worked in companies, I've been self-employed now for 12 years, but companies before that, and even at Yahoo and Microsoft back in the day, it was the manager or the director or the VP talking about what we're going to do this week, this month, this quarter, what have you. And it was like a one-sided speech. And can I hear from you all? And hey, let's communicate, let's talk. But then at the end of the day, while some would, share in that, okay, got it, and then dismiss and out and have his or her own agenda. And it happens too often. And that's a lot of politics in that too. But the personality needs to be open to that level of change, because communication can't just be, well, as you said, a one-way street, even though you didn't word it that way. But
yes, but thank you for wording it that way, because that just goes to show that two people can effectively communicate something beautifully together. It's a great representation of what we're talking about.
Yes, exactly. Well, this is great. I'm going to flip the screen over here to share the website here. I know you have a dash between. Was there no Malorie Nicole without the dash?
No Malorie Nicole without the dash.
Oh,
but
so make sure you have the dash.
Really easy way to get to my website, because Malorie is a little bit tricky to spell. If you go to abundantlyclearpodcast.com, it'll take you to the site. So it's super easy. It'll take you to the podcast page, and then you can hop around anything else that you might want to see. And you can find me on iTunes, Android.
That's
all of the things.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you prefer the social connection, Facebook, the website, podcast, or do you have an email? Or
there are ways that you can opt into my email list on my website. And also, if you would like, I do a whole lot on Facebook, so you can find me on Facebook. I believe it's on the blog page. But I mean, we can look at all of those reviews right there if you want.
Exactly. There's abundance in the reviews, that's for sure.
I'm only joking. There are a couple places on my website that you can opt into my email list, but the most active place would be Facebook. You can find me on Facebook, or you can subscribe to my podcast. Yeah,
Abundantly Clear, the Growth Mindset Podcast with Malorie Nicole. Well, this is just over the top cool. I know that we're trying to schedule and crazy times, but I'm just so pleased.
I know we're both moving right now, so it's been fun to try and coordinate all that. Thank you for being flexible.
Exactly. I got like 1 minute to get out of here now, so this is perfect timing. I mean, talk about
wonderful.
Just right. This is great. Any final things, just as we exit? Any final tips, insights, or books, or something that might just tie into this to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think one of the last things I would say is to just ask yourself the simple question, what are you avoiding? That has been one of the hot topics that I've been thinking about recently, and you and I have talked about this. Yeah. What are you avoiding in your business? That is going to give you an indication of where your mindset work needs to be addressed. Maybe you hate doing sales. Maybe you hate putting yourself out there. Maybe you are avoiding confrontation or conflict. And this also goes into your personal life too. Maybe you have some hard conversations that you're not having. Or that you need to have that you're not having. What do you know that you need to be doing that you're not doing? Ask yourself that first, so that you can uncover what's deeper. What is the real reason why those things are happening?
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Malorie, for joining here today. And thank you all for watching and listening on the podcast as well. And make sure you head on over to subscribe to Malorie's podcast as well. I'm a subscriber, and it is growing fast. I know you launched this fairly recently, right?
I just went through a relaunch. I went through a rebrand and everything, and it's exploding a little bit right now. So it's really, really exciting. I am excited to have a podcast to reach more people and just put out the message that the entrepreneurial roller coaster of hustle and grind mentality doesn't have to be the way, and that you can thrive and enjoy it and grow at in a way that feels good to you. The stress does not have to come with the basket.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a virtual high five to you, Malorie.
Thank you so much for having me on. I so appreciate you.
Yes, likewise. Take it easy. Have a great week.
All right, you too.
See you. Cheers.
Bye.
All right.